Welcome live from Studio 7 at the CNN Centre. I'm Lynda Kinkade. Good to have you with us. Coming up on CNN today, a peaceful demonstration ends with violence in Hong Kong in the latest face-off over that controversial extradition bill. And a win for the ages. Novak Djokovic beating Roger Federer in the longest Wimbledon singles final ever. And targeting undocumented immigrants, the US carries out raids in 9 major cities. Our top story, another outbreak of violence, protests in Hong Kong. It happened after mostly peaceful marches. The Hong Kong government is accusing demonstrators of deliberately undermining social peace. Our Paula Hancock is covering the protests, and she has more on the ongoing movement and what happened Sunday.
There's been yet another face-off between protesters and police on the streets of Hong Kong this Sunday night. You can see most of the protesters have left now. They've left their helmets. There were also bricks on the ground, umbrellas, in some cases some nails which had been thrown at the police as they were retreating. For the most part, this Sunday night, police were relatively restrained, certainly more so than they have been in recent weeks. This has been going on for about 6 weeks now, and in some of the protests, police have been using tear gas. They've been using rubber bullets and also pepper spray against the protesters. Not the case tonight, though. There was a very peaceful march, which protesters say was more than 100,000 strong. The police say it's more like 28,000. The correct figure might be somewhere in between that. That was a peaceful march against the extradition bill. And this is really the crux of why these protests are continuing here in Hong Kong. The fact that Hong Kongers did not want this extradition bill, where people here could be extradited to China to face charges and go through the courts there. And there's a real sense among protesters that there is a chipping away of the democracy that Hong Kongers are clinging onto here by the powers in Beijing. So certainly the momentum is continuing. We are seeing protesters still coming onto the streets. They're going to different areas in Hong Kong now, trying to spread their word, trying to garner support for their message. We do see sporadic clashes with police, but certainly for the most part, these protesters this Sunday have been peaceful. Paula Hancock, CNN, Hong Kong.
Well, amid the rapidly deteriorating relations between Iran and the US, Iran's foreign minister is in New York for a United Nations meeting. Jared Zarif arrived Sunday after US Secretary of State Mike Pompeo okayed his visa. That opens the door for possible sideline talks between the two countries. It all happened just a few hours after Iran's president said his country is ready to negotiate with the US if it lifts sanctions.
We are always ready for negotiations. In this very hour, in this moment, we are ready for talks, provided that you stop your act of aggression, stop your sanctions, and return to the negotiation table and return to logic.
Well, separately, the Daily Mail reports leaked cables from the UK's former US ambassador include his view that President Trump pulled out of the Iran nuclear deal simply out of spite for Barack Obama, whose administration negotiated it. CNN has not seen the cables to verify that, and the White House has declined to comment. Well, now to an epic day in sports history, being made on the pitch and on the track and on the court. Well, let's start with tennis. Novak Djokovic got the win at Wimbledon Sunday after the longest ever singles final at the tournament. Clocking in at 4 hours and 57 minutes, this is Djokovic's 5th Wimbledon title. He defeated Roger Federer, who was hoping to become the oldest Grand Slam winner of modern times. Our Christina McFarlane caught up with the champion shortly after the match.
Novak, congratulations. Was this the biggest win of your career? Where does it rank in everything you've achieved?
Probably top 2. Physically most demanding match against Nadal in finals of Australia 2012, and this was mentally most demanding because of the circumstances and Roger across the net that was playing well, serving well. I had just difficult time to read his serve, and he was match points up and serving. And you know, in those moments, you just try to stay there, try to stay present, and find that strength and self-belief, and in the end, manage to pull it out. And I'm very, very, very happy and proud of the achievement today.
And exhausted.
And exhausted as well, of course. Thank you.
And exhausted, no doubt about that. CNN's sports analyst Christine Brennan is on the line from Washington for more on that incredible match. Christine, it certainly involved a lot of stamina to see that game today. 4 hours, 57 minutes. Just incredible for anyone to play that long, let alone pull off that sort of a victory.
Well, that's right, Linda, and especially when you're talking about Roger Federer, who is almost 38 years old, and Djokovic, 32. These are the matches that people will talk about for 20 years from now, 30, 40, 50 years from now. It was that epic. It was that good. It was everything that is right about sports. I think so many people were sick and tired of some of the nonsense and misbehavior and whatever. Well, here were two gentlemen, in every sense of the word, living up to their athletic promise that they have shown us over and over again, playing a match for the ages. It just wasn't going to end until it finally did. Djokovic getting the better of a man he respects as much as anyone on the planet, Roger Federer, and he did it by winning those 3 tiebreakers, even though Federer probably played better than Djokovic. It was Djokovic's day, and he seems to have Federer's number now. But one of those moments in sports that we should covet and we should hold on to, because you don't see this every day. And when sports are good, they're great, and this was off the charts.
It certainly was. Certainly good value for money for those who happened to score tickets on the sideline watching that game. In terms of Federer, he's already got 20 Grand Slam titles, the most in men's history. What happens for him now? He's approaching 38, as you mentioned. Where does he go from here?
Well, he mentioned that he's going to be a dad again, you know, in the sense of he's got to go back to being a father, you know, with the kids watching, and he goes back to his normal life for a week or two and wants his body to heal. He said this is very difficult for him, Linda. This is not easy to put your body through something like this, especially when you are approaching, as I said, 38 years old. He has the U.S. Open. That is the last of the 4 Grand Slam tournaments, and now that will be coming up in a couple of months in New York. And then next year, you know, he's close enough and he is so good that there's no reason to talk about his retiring at this point, because he's right there. 1 or 2 points go his way. He had match point. He could have won this. And then we'd be saying, well, of course, next year and the year after. So I don't think we've seen the last of Roger Federer. And again, the class and the dignity and the grace with which he conducts himself in all ways is a model for any athlete in any sport. And I think the sport of tennis wants him to be around as long as possible, even though Djokovic has had his number recently. The last win that Federer had over Djokovic in a major tournament was in the semifinals of Wimbledon in 2012. So certainly not the result that Federer wanted. And meanwhile, Djokovic has now won 4 of the last 5 men's Grand Slam titles. So he's on a roll, and yet Federer almost got him today, which speaks volumes about Federer.
It certainly does. An absolutely epic match. Christine Brennan, always good to get your perspective. Thanks so much for joining us.
Linda, my pleasure. Thank you very much.
We're just a bit north at Wimbledon, north of Wimbledon rather, Lord's Cricket Ground. Host England won the Cricket World Cup in the most dramatic final in history. Our Alex Thomas was there.
We have witnessed history here in an absorbing and nail-biting final that saw cricket's first super over in a Cricket World Cup final, the sports equivalent of football's penalty shootout. It will have delighted World Cup organisers. England are jubilant after their first ever Cricket World Cup triumph, but you have to feel sorry for New Zealand, who couldn't be separated after both teams had had their 50 overs, and even after each team had had its super over of 6 balls each. In the end, England winning because they had scored more boundaries over the course of the match. What a contrast, but what an incredible history-making finale to this tournament that started back at the end of May.
We're going to get much more from Alex a little later in World Sport. Also ahead, a big day at the British Grand Prix where Formula One champion Lewis Hamilton won the race for a record 6th time. Hamilton crossed the finish line 25 seconds ahead of his Mercedes teammate Valtteri Bottas. The win extends Hamilton's championship lead to 39 points. Well, Kate Riley will have much more on that. The Cricket World Cup and Wimbledon coming up in about 30 minutes' time. We're turning now to the US, where one administration official says immigration raids across the country have begun. The operation taking place coast to coast from New York to Los Angeles. Well, in New Orleans, it was on the list, but officials there suspended operations because of the weather. Authorities are set to target some 2,000 undocumented immigrants in these raids. Earlier, our Jake Tapper talked with the acting director of US Citizenship and Immigration Services. Take a listen.
Can you guarantee that no parents will be separated from their children, excluding the violent criminals that we're talking about earlier? Can you guarantee that no parents will be separating from their children in these raids?
In the same way I wasn't willing to talk about operational details, that would be an operational detail that I'm not going to comment on. There are 1 million people, including families, with removal orders. The priority remains for ICE to get at criminals.
Criminals, they say, is the target, but everyone else obviously is worried about being caught up in this. Leila Santiago is in Atlanta, Georgia, one of the cities slated for the raids, and she joins me now with what she's hearing on the ground there. And Leila, you've been speaking to people there. Talk to us about how they're feeling.
Well, listen, overall, there is a sense of fear, Linda. Right now, you can see we're in a mall that is sort of the heart of the Latino community here in Atlanta. You do see people and families who are out and about, but most people tell me this is not what it typically is for a Sunday, that it's typically way more crowded. Many people have stayed home. I want to introduce you to a man I just met. He has been here 18 years. He has children, one child with special needs, and he is very much scared. So I'm going to ask him to tell me about how he's feeling right now. You will see we're not showing his face. He's not comfortable with that because of the fear, and he also doesn't feel comfortable answering in English. So I'm going to bear with me here. I'm going to translate for you so you can understand how he's feeling right now. Cuéntame usted cómo es que se siente ahora mismo.
Pues ahora con lo que yo hemos escuchado y lo que hemos sabido, que ahora la gente está muy espantada y hace meter miedo a uno, pero pues lo que he visto que aquí en Plaza Fiesta no hay muchas personas como otros fines de semana.
Yeah, so he's saying that there is fear among the community, and what he typically sees here in this mall, more people. Now, he, again, is a father, and I'm going to ask him how he explains this to his children, especially keep in mind that he has one child with special needs. Explícame cómo es que usted le explica esto a sus niños.
Yo he conversado tengo 5 hijos, pero el menor tiene 13 años y a él yo le he dicho que tengo una opción con unos familiares que yo tengo más confianza en ellos, a que yo pienso hacer algo como una carta firmada para acceder, en caso de que
algo le pase a usted,
de que algo me pase a mí, acceder a esa familiar para que mi niño se quede con ellos.
So he's already told his children, he has 5 children, and he's already told them if something happens to him, if he does not come home, because they realize this is a possibility, he's already chosen who that child should go to, and he's looking into if there's any paperwork he can sign so that his children have someone to care for them if something were to happen to him. Now, that said, he told me earlier he plans to go to work tomorrow because he has to make a living. So I'm going to ask him a little bit about that as well. Y mañana, ¿usted piensa ir al trabajo?
Sí, pues yo trabajo todos los días y no hay otra más que pues tengo que salir a trabajar y ando manejando y yo estoy con el temor de que ya no pueda regresar yo a la casa.
So he says he has to go to work. He has no other option, and he travels to work with the fear that he may not return home tomorrow. Lynda, muchas gracias. Muchísimas gracias por hablar con nosotros. I just thanked him for taking the time to talk to us. This is very typical. This conversation is what I've had multiple times with a lot of the people here who are very confused and very much on edge, waiting to find out what will happen tomorrow morning when many of them wake up and leave their homes to go to work. Lynda?
Yeah, an absolute horrible feeling for everyone in his situation. Leila Santiago, good to get his perspective. Thanks so much for that. We're going to take a quick break. Coming up on CNN today, nearly 1 million Rohingya refugees are in harm's way again. There are more monsoon flooding that is making it even harder for them to get to where they need. That story straight ahead.
Is cleaning the outside of your house an exhausting all-day affair? You drag all those different cleaners around and then have to climb up and down. Not anymore.
Hi, I'm John Florell, the Fuller Brush Man, and this is Full Crystal Full Exterior, the fast, easy way to clean all the dirt and grime from around your house in no time.
Just add the cleaning crystals, attach it to any garden hose, and away you go. Quickly blast stains off wood decks, vinyl and metal siding. Completely clean dirt and debris from gutters, shutters, and overhangs. Erase grease and oil from concrete driveways, walkways, and pavers. Simply aim, spray, and it all goes away. The secret is in the full exterior cleaning crystals that safely break down, lift, and wash away dirt and grime in no time. With full exterior, use it on stucco, concrete, wood, vinyl, metal, and even porous pavers to clean up quick.
Watch. We abused this white siding with the worst oil, grease, and dirt stains, but Full Exterior easily washes them away so nothing remains.
It's bleach and oxidizer free, so it's completely safe to use around your shrubs, lawn, and flowers. With the Fuller Power Sprayer, it reaches up to 27 feet high. Use it to quickly power wash patio furniture, get rid of stains from picket fences and painted trim, power off bird droppings and tree sap from shingles and roof tiles. Call or go online to order the complete full exterior system for the factory direct price of just $19.99.
But wait, order right now and we'll double your cleaning crystals.
Just pay a separate fee.
That's enough to make up to 14 gallons of cleaner. Full Exterior cleaning crystals are made in the USA. And remember, it's from the Fuller Brush Company, so your satisfaction is 100% guaranteed.
Call or go online to buyfullexterior.com. That's buyfullexterior.com. Order now.
Well, let's go back to the immigration crackdown in the United States. As the raids are getting underway, President Trump has been busy golfing and again tweeting. He unleashed a series of racially charged tweets that attack progressive Democratic congresswomen, and the Democrats are, of course, firing back. Well, Boris Sanchez is live at the White House. Boris, President Trump initially started by pretty much telling these women to go back from where they came from. Most of them, they're all U.S. citizens, 3 of which are born in the U.S.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. This tweet, the series of tweets from President Trump, clearly misinformed. He's going after 4 progressive women who've had a bit of a rift with House Speaker Nancy Pelosi. Ayanna Pressley, Ilhan Omar, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and Rashida Tlaib. They've sort of been infighting with the head of the Democratic Party over a recent immigration funding bill, over their use of social media. And the president sought to essentially exploit that through these tweets. As you said, all of them are American citizens. Ilhan Omar is the only congresswoman on that list who was born outside of the United States. She was born in Somalia. She moved to the U.S. when she was 12, was naturalized as a citizen at 17, some 20 years ago. The president's intent here is clear. He's using the language of white nationalists to try to court support from people who are uncomfortable with immigration and uncomfortable with changing demographics. In this sense, it may have backfired because these Democrats have essentially united against their common enemy, which is President Trump. Nancy Pelosi, the House Speaker, put out her own tweet calling him a racist and xenophobe. It's unclear exactly what the president hoped to gain from this, but at least for now, this series of tweets has erased a rift in the Democratic Party, his political rivals. Linda.
Certainly it seems to be working against his intention there. But it's not just Democrats that have united against this. At least one Republican has come out to denounce these comments. Who is he playing to here?
Yeah, you're probably referring to former Republican Justin Amash. You'll recall that he criticized President Trump after the Mueller report was released, suggesting that the president should be impeached, and then he was ultimately cast off from the Republican Party. He's now an independent, largely because of his feelings about President Trump, not because of his ideology. As for who the president is playing to, simply put, his base. We've seen him play from this playbook before, going into the 2016 election, going into 2018, calling migrants invaders, suggesting that Mexicans are rapists and thieves, saying that he will shut down the border. The list of racist things this president has said goes on and on and on. But he feels comfortable saying it largely because there is silence from Republicans who have learned to avoid any harsh criticism of this president, and also because his base is reliably with him. Important to point out, just last week, the Washington Post and ABC News put out a poll that suggested that the president's approval numbers were near an all-time high, still relatively low, hovering in the mid-40s. Linda.
All right, Boris Sanchez, good to get you live with us from the White House as always. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Well, to Bangladesh now, where there's severe flooding and it's threatening the lives of nearly 1 million Rohingya Muslims who fled Myanmar and are now living in refugee camps. Our Ivan Watson has more.
The monsoon season has arrived in Bangladesh, and it's causing chaos for people already living in crisis. The rains flooded overcrowded refugee camps in Cox's Bazar, which are home to around 1 million Rohingya Muslims, most of whom fled nearby Myanmar during a military crackdown, which the UN says could amount to genocide, claims Myanmar denies. Hundreds of makeshift shelters collapsed in muddy landslides. Thousands of families relocated to temporary shelters. Hafizullah and his family were sent to a nearby school since their house was a flood risk. But in the process, they lost nearly everything.
We were staying at another place when the rains came, and in that time, our things were stolen. I have lost everything of mine. That's why I have to live in the dark now. I lost my light and battery.
The couple's children were already malnourished before the rains hit. Now the floods have made their difficult young lives even harder.
We can't cook anything because I think my stove is damaged. We don't have food to eat now, so we can't give anything to our children. They can't drink the water, and they can't go outside because of the floods.
My children are suffering from fever, but we don't have any medicine. We are living in real hardship here.
Even before the floods, the situation in the camps was dire. A daily struggle to collect much-needed aid, now complicated after some main pathways collapsed.
It is very difficult because the paths become very muddy. People have a lot of trouble sometimes to reach the service point. So for children to go to school, because there is not the sufficient infrastructure in the camps and because of the crowdedness.
Aid agencies say they're scrambling to help people in the camps, and they're trying to prevent the spread of waterborne diseases. The Bangladesh Foreign Ministry told CNN that it is well prepared, along with the UN system, to face any eventualities in terms of the Rohingya refugee camps. The priority for Hafizullah: fix his makeshift shelter so that the family can come back home. His neighbors are doing the same. But basic building materials provide flimsy protection from more heavy rain. There's another deluge forecast this week, and months of monsoon season still ahead. The lives of those who had so little to begin with now even more precarious.
We're just living with crisis. We lost everything. But so what? At least we are alive now.
Ivan Watson, CNN.
Well, a new plan to slow the flow of migrants to the US is on hold. We're going to ask a humanitarian aid expert about the struggles in Central America and what is pushing people to leave. Stay with us.